Uber and Lyft drivers, what's your most NSFW story? Picked up this very tall and somewhat muscular-looking black girl carrying what looks like a tackle box. She was dressed somewhat risque. Gets in the car and I said hello, she responds with a pretty deep voice. We started the trip and she was telling me that she was on her way to do makeup for one of her friends, and her phone rang. She answered the call, and it started off pretty standard. I wasn't really paying attention. Suddenly I just hear, "Girl, what are you worried about? You have a great lookin' clit." Alright then. Where's this going? No, Derek is super sweet, it'll be fun I promise. No girl, he's just gonna come through the doors. Yes, I'll be there. I'll be outside the doors as one of the topless guards. Anyway, he's going to pan through doors, focus in on you on the bed. Just start playing with yourself, nothing you haven't done before. Yes, after a few minutes of doing that you call for the guards, and I come in and we fuck. Yes, I brought the strap on, it's in the makeup box. And that's the story of the person planning their porno during an Uber ride. We have a driver here who has been advertising on Craigslist and has his girlfriend ride in the back seat and arranges specific pickups so she can give you a hand job during your trip. Oh my god, that's terrible. Where though? Which city is this filthy ad posted in? My friend told me about a couple who got into his car. They were slightly drunk talking nonsense to each other, so he didn't pay much attention, just kept driving and occasionally checking on them through the rearview mirror. Eventually the girl got quiet, so he checked in the mirror and didn't see her, and my innocent friend thought she was asleep and even laughed about it with the guy. Well, not long after that he passed a speed bump and heard the guy saying, "Oh shit." At the same time a gurgling sound was heard and a smell of booze plus sour filled up the whole car. So yeah, the girl was sucking off her boyfriend, whatever. The speed bump caused her to deep throat and vomit all over the backseat, and my poor friend still had to drive around with a vomit-smelling car. At least they rated him 5 stars. There's a photo of this on Reddit that I posted and deleted when it happened, but I can't find it right now. Not me, but a friend who also drives in my city picked up this drunk girl on her bachelorette at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. She was going like 4 blocks but was so drunk she passed out the second she sat down. He pulls off and about 30 seconds later she shits in her sleep. She's wearing very short shorts, so it just falls out both sides. Being that she's passed the fuck out, he drives her to her hotel anyway, with the windows down trying not to vomit. When he gets there, she kinda wakes up, and in the process of getting out manages to smear shit on his back seat, on the back of the front seat, on the inside roof, on the outside roof, and on the door. She says sorry, throws him $20, and disappears. Uber gives him $250 to clean his car, charged to the shitter. The next day he gets an email from Uber saying she called them all pissed off because why did she have to pay a soilage charge when she already gave him $20 to get the car cleaned? Edit, someone found the post. Messy. Apparently she hasn't been told that shit's gotten pretty pricey now days. Wasn't really NSFW, but on my second day doing Uber one of the clients was on house arrest, Dave. Dave was a cool guy. He wanted me to buy him some wine and smokes from the gas station. He even trusted me with his card plus PIN. When I get back I decide to just have a smoke with him. That turns into us doing Tai Chi in his backyard at 2 a.m. Really cool dude Dave was. Hope he turned his life around. Same friend, 3 occasions over a year. 1. Guy was drunk and pulled his pants off and started playing with himself. 2. Girl decided she was happy and pulled her top off for her other friend that wasn't so drunk to feel her up. Friend apparently flipped out. 3. Guy passed out drunk, so he checked and his pulse was low, took him to the hospital, turned out the guy was overdosing on Xanax and alcohol, and he saved his life. I picked up a client who said he was on his way to the hospital to get something removed. It was very clear by his movements that he had something stuck in his ass. I asked if he needed an ambulance instead, but he said he didn't have insurance so he couldn't afford it. After I dropped him off and helped him in, I got back in the car and looked back to find a blood stain on the seat. The morals of the story are 1. If you're poor, don't shove things in your ass that can get stuck. 2. Never get light gray upholstery in your new car. I was in Santa Ana, California looking for a guy the first was supposed to pick up. He lived in a large cul-de-sac with a small park in the center. It happened to be later in the evening when I went to pick him up. I go through the cul-de-sac once pretty slowly as I can't find his house. I decided to do a second round of the cul-de-sac, and when I get a quarter of the way through, two guys emerge from the park and one of them pulls out his pistol and asked, "What the fuck you doing in my neighborhood?" I decide to act really calm and just let him know that I'm with Uber and was unable to find a passenger and who I was looking for. He says, "Oh, you looking for random name, he's at the top of the cul-de-sac blue house." I thanked him for his help and cancelled on my rider. Fuck that shit. I love that the guy was waving a gun in your face, but as soon as you explain yourself he's all like, "Oh, he's right over there, sorry about the mix-up." Some people have a different way of living. When he saw an unknown car slowly driving around looking all around, he probably thought it was someone from another neighborhood looking to shoot, rob someone. Yep. I worked in a house for a few days where it was like this. Almost zero crime, and it was well known that a gang infested the neighborhood, but they were extremely reasonable. Cheaper than police department and NWA and much more effective. And they won't fine you for not having your lawn watered in the winter. #DAMNHOA. HOAs. Literally worse than the Mexican mafia. Yeah, and Lil Hector doesn't give a shit what color you paint your house, unlike those criminals at the WA. I don't drive for either of those companies, but I had a pretty bizarre fare once. I picked up a guy and a girl midday Saturday for a short ride, couple of km. The girl seemed drugged out of her mind and was wearing somewhat revealing clothing, so it was pretty clear they'd been partying the night before. While driving, I picked up their conversation, which they were not even attempting to hide. It was pretty clear that the guy had a girlfriend who was not the girl in the car and that he had just hooked up with this girl. They were currently heading to his girlfriend to explain what had happened. To be clear, he is bringing the girl he was unfaithful with along to explain to his girlfriend that he just fucked her. He tipped well though. Should have hung around, chances are they would have needed another ride shortly. Not exactly NSFW, but definitely my favorite story. I picked up a couple in their 30s on St. Patrick's Day this year at 2 a.m. They wanted to take about a 35-mile drive at 6.3x surge, so I was about to give the third highest paying fare I'd ever given. Great way to end the night. They had clearly been drinking like they were 20-somethings since early in the day. The wife, in the front seat, was super apologetic for the first 5 minutes or so, completely embarrassed about their level of intoxication, while the husband, in the back, was trying to be my new best friend. After 5 minutes or so though, the Sandman paid them a visit, and they both passed out. I drove for the next 20 minutes in relative peace. When we arrived in their driveway, the husband was sound asleep, and they had a half-inch of wet snow in their driveway, so I took the wife inside first. While on the way in, she appended her purse in the snow, but I was more focused on getting her safely inside. Once we got in, I helped her to the bathroom, and then went to the garage to get a snow shovel. I cleared a 4 feet wide path from the garage to the car, so I could get the husband inside. He's a bigger guy, and I wanted to be safe, and finally got him awake. I gave him my shoulder and got him inside. He begged me, "Please, just get me to the recliner, I can't make it to bed," so that's where we headed. All the while the wife is throwing up with the force of a small waterfall in the bathroom. I ran outside and grabbed the contents of her purse, which included her phone, absolutely soaked at this point, and came back inside. She begged me to rise her phone, so I started to dig through her cupboards for a bag and rice. While digging I came across their meds, and pulled some Advil, absorbed by kidneys, for them. I riced her phone, then gave them both Advil and water and told them to take more in the morning, they were gonna need it. Then I locked the door and showed myself out. In the end, I was dropping them off for well over half an hour, but the fare was awesome and the day was my second best day of driving, so it didn't really bug me. The kicker? They left me a 5-star review the next day. Pretty okay guy. Best ride ever. Obligatory healthcare provider edit. I promise I actually gave them Advil. I was typing that while very exhausted and hurriedly eating breakfast, and mixed up my drugs. I try not to poison my riders, smiley face. When combining Advil with ETOH, don't take more than the recommended dose and combine with food and a fair amount of water to avoid GI issues up to and including bleeds. Also, my top-ranked post is about me taking some drunk folks home. Awesome. Obligatory edit number 2. Thanks for the gold, kind stranger. You're a pretty okay person. Hey fellow Redditors, I really appreciate being gilded for my first time, but you know what I love even more than a month without ads? Helping others out. Rather than spending your money on me, if you really want to make my day, donate your time or money to a worthy cause. One that's near and dear to my heart is Bill Richards' Higgins Lake Forever Camp. Every 4th of July weekend, along with 30 or so other volunteers, I take about 100 to 120 adults with disabilities up to the Ralph A. McMullen Conference Center on the north side of Higgins Lake in Michigan, all expenses paid. For many, it's the only vacation they can afford to take all year. If you'd like to donate, you can send donations marked Bill Richards Higgins Lake Forever to Community Resource Volunteers, 304 North Brush Street, St. Johns, Michigan, 48879 or Peckham, Inc. 3510 Capital City Boulevard. Lansing, Michigan, 48906. You can read about the amazing man who started it, and inspired so many here. A mate of mine drives Grab, which is basically a Southeast Asian version of Uber. Once picked up a guy and 3 girls. Turned out the guy was a pimp and the girls were hookers, and the 4 were being tailed by the cops for illicit prostitution. And my friend was forced to involve. Long story short, they got stopped by the cops and my friend explained that it was his birthday and they were going to an orgy for his birthday. And no orgy for him. He did get a nice tip though. Edit, next time I better make it clear what tip I am talking about. Not a driver but a story told to me by a driver after dropping off his previous passengers. This was when I was at uni. I couldn't bother waiting for a bus home so I hired an Uber. Luckily there was a guy nearby dropping off a guy and a girl. I knew them, still FB friends with them. They got out and I got in. I said hi to them and chatted for a few seconds. They said they were going to study for a bit then go to the library to meet up with her boyfriend. I was tired so I just told them to have fun and I'd see them in class the next day. The driver overheard most of this talk and said he was surprised the girl had another boyfriend. I asked why and he said she and the guy who was just with her were being very flirty, touchy and kissing on the way over. I was gobsmacked a little, saying no, that's impossible. I laughed a bit and told him he must have imagined it. He said no, he saw them being very affectionate with each other. I'm just sitting back there shocked and not knowing what to say. He said, I'm sorry to tell this to you but your friend might be kind of a slut if she's cheating on a boyfriend. I'm still trying to process what I've been told. A little while later he drops me off at home. Before I get out I tell him, I'm sorry I seem a bit shocked but my friends, the guy and girl you just dropped off at the uni, they're brother and sister. He was like, fuck off, you serious? Almost as shocked as I was. I wasn't completely sure whether what the driver told me that day was the truth or not. For a while I convinced myself he was bullshitting me and knew they were brother and sister, but I noticed other stuff afterwards that kinda confirmed it. So they had Uber over at Westeros. The things I do for love. Pushes Uber driver out of moving vehicle. Picked up a handful of drunk high school kids at 2 a.m. They just finished their graduation party and they were hammered. One of them threw up in the back. We had to stop on the side of the highway for him to get everything out of his system. He went behind the bush and did a number 2, but he didn't have any tissue. It was fucking disgusting the whole way. Puke and shit are a surprisingly nasty combination. Puke and shit are a surprisingly nasty combination. That doesn't sound very surprising to me. Can confirm. Source, I fell asleep in a nightclub toilet, mid-poo and with my pants round my ankles where I then threw up in them. Bouncer shock woke me, I pulled them up and staggered home and fell asleep fully clothed and urinated in said mix too. The next day waking up with puke and poo rehydrated by urine and allowed to dry again in my butt crack was an experience that will never leave me. Stay away from tequila kids. Edit, I am currently at Cleckheaton Folk Festival in deepest Yorkshire having a pleasant time with the missus. She was worried about why I keep checking my phone so I told her the tale for the first time. We're still a couple, yay. This story has me screaming in my head. It's only part of it. New Year's Eve so quiet bar, only nice looking girl in the place. You wanna come back to mine? Yeah, I'll just nip to the loo. I was found about 3 hours later. This story could have been even worse if you got back to her place before this all happened. I work for a company similar to Uber. Oftentimes you have to play therapist for drunk customers. They will lay out very personal details about their lives to you. One customer told me about how her ex-husband has been hospitalized several times due to complications from alcoholism, and that they told him that the next time he comes in, he'll likely die. She told me that she really hopes that the father will die before her 17-year-old son turns 18 because she doesn't want him to have the responsibility of having to decide to pull the plug. Another ride started with the customer asking if I played Overwatch, and within 5 minutes she was crying and telling me about her friend who committed suicide. One ride I couldn't find the window button. We drive the customers home in their own cars, so the customer reached over for it, very clearly moving her hand across my groin on the way. She also refused to sign her check unless she could write her number on my arm, and slapped my ass as I walked away. Another customer asked me for change, and I handed it to him as his other hand was on his dick, peeing in his front yard. Another customer, whose car interior was absolutely covered in cigarette ash and butts, told me about how her daughter recently got hooked on meth by her boyfriend, and how she hates black men because her black father left her as a child when he went to prison. I could go on. Edit, sorry to break it to you all, but this service is in Fargo, North Dakota, not Florida. Also, we drive the customer's car, are picked up by our partner in a follower car, and go to the next one. Do you play Overwatch though? A few months ago this lady came into my car whilst busily talking on her phone. Yeah, you can't tell anyone on the team yet. No, I haven't told anyone at all. I was secretly eavesdropping, as I usually do, trying to figure out what kind of job she had. The details are kinda gruesome. The poor thing was lying there for a while after it happened because there was no one around. These bastards took everything from her and tried to steal her car, but they apparently ran over her and they just booked it. Her body was practically split in two under one of the wheels. It was only a couple hours later someone saw it and called us. She was still alive when we got there. Hey listen, I gotta go. We'll talk more soon. We had reached her destination, church. She got out of the car with a quick thank you. I did a little over 500 trips for Uber last year, and the only thing remotely NSFW I experienced was this really hot girl asked me to zip up the back of her dress when I picked her up. Hoo ha ha, that was cool. I feel this is the most real response in here. If it counts, 20+ years ago I drove for a sedan service. I picked up one of the Temptations and took him to get drugs and a hooker. It certainly wasn't safe for my work at the time, but everything worked out okay. He came out of a luxury resort and gave me a sketchy address. When we arrived, it was an abandoned convenience store, so he told me he was looking for some company. Yeah, I knew where to find that, and along the way, he said he was looking for some medicine, too, so we stopped in the ghetto and got him something to smoke. Could have been weed or crack or anything, I don't know, and I didn't ask. After being told, fuck you, cop more than once, we found a pretty young lady of the evening. He asked where she's been all night. She said she's been right there waiting for him. She got in the car, they kissed and groped in the back seat on the way back to the resort, and he gave me a decent tip. INB for the inquiry, no, it was not David Ruffin. Only ever Ubered once, picked up a couple that had been making out as I pulled up, and the entire time driving she kept saying how they were gonna SMAAASHHH. Dude definitely got lucky that night. Edit, I don't understand any of these Becky references people. Thanks for watching our video. If you like it, please smash the subscribe and like button to support the channel, so that we can create more quality content in the future.